This is the most time I've ever put into a Damascus pattern. I really hope I don't mess it up again. Oh, we did it again. Howdy guys, welcome back to the workshop. My name is willstelter. I'm a professional bladesmith. Fun fact, that's my dad back there, back when he was my age in 1836. He's old. In today's episode, we're gonna be working on part 8 of the Lotus Flower Damascus chef's knife. Now, if you guys have watched the series up to this point, you know there's been trials. Gosh dang it. There's been some tribulations. I see a lot of areas that look problematic to me. There's been some tomfoolery. I got a fever and the only cure is more plug welds. Right, guys? And we're gonna move past all of that, hopefully, in today's episode, because this thing is looking like a knife. And today, we're gonna get the blade dang near close to done and ready for a handle. But before I can do that, I need to plan out exactly what I want my handle to be so that I can figure out how I want to grind this bolster shape, which is one of the next steps that we have. So our first thing that we're gonna do, take out a pad and paper and just sketch it out. My initial plan was to carve a lotus flower into the top of the handle. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's gonna look very good because you won't really be able to tell what it is from looking at it from the side, and you probably won't be able to see it very well from the top down either. So after a little bit of thought, my new plan is to make the bolster transition look like the stem of a lotus coming down inside the water and then forming into a root system. Now there's a couple other fun things that I'd like to try, working with a little bit of mother of pearl to add some basically water bubbles. So essentially the theme will be that the handle is kind of underwater, the stem comes down from all the lotuses in the blade and then goes into the roots flowing into the butt. And I may not, I'm not totally sure, but I think I will add a big, thick mother of pearl butt cap onto this as well. So we'll have little dots of mother of pearl floating around the handle, as well as a big, nice mother of pearl butt cap on it. I think that's gonna look really nice. It'll add some very interesting visual color. I think that the dots of the mother of pearl will mirror nicely with the round plug welds in the blade, and it'll be totally unique, nothing like anything that I have ever seen before. So now that we have our handle plan, we can get going and start grinding on this blade. All right, so I rounded out my finger choil here with the 1/2-inch wheel. That's by far my preferred radius. It seemingly is the most widely comfortable sized radius or choil. Now what I'm gonna do is spray the blade down with some layout fluid. This will turn the whole thing blue so that we can scribe lines. I'm gonna scribe my center lines for my bolster. I base my height gauge off the top of the block and then I scribe from both sides. Then I'll base it off of the top of the bolster right here. Go down a little bit, do the same thing. Okay. So as you can see, there's definitely more room on this side than there is on that side. This side is pretty much parallel and this side kicks up. That could be a big deal, but fortunately we have plenty of room. That's a little over a 1/2 inch, I think. What do you want to bet? It is 525 thousandths. Oh, I was way off. 480. I was 40 thou off. That's embarrassing. The actual bolster is, well, 520 thousandths. My micrometer is dialed. Usually what my next step would be to grind in my bevel a little bit more, but I think that what I'm gonna do is take it to the waterfall platen. It's a small wheel with a platen behind it, and then we can kind of cut in our bolster transition here with that. It just means that it requires, honestly, a little bit less skill. It's a little bit easier to use than just using a small wheel and kind of flowing it in. And it's a lot easier to not get any divots in the blade. Let's go ahead and scribe. We'll line this guy up and we'll scribe a couple of lines on here. So we have some square references to make sure that our transition is even on both sides. This is a 2-inch little Starrett ruler. This thing is super cute. It was in really good shape, and then Matt got a hold of it, and now it's all scratched up. He was also ardently against me having purchased a rather expensive mini ruler, and then he did his journeyman set, and turned out that he loves it and realized all the uses that it has. Bam. Precision. I don't necessarily need it to be exactly where I want it to end, because I'll be able to visually tell where we're at. Okay, we got 2 lines on there. We can add more if we need to. And we'll throw 1 or 2 down here. We got the bolster squared up and looking good, so now it's time to rough grind the distal taper and the bevels into the blade. All right, so I've got it ground, and here's the thing. The way that I like to grind chef's knives if I'm not doing an S grind is I have it very flat at the edge, and then it kind of rolls back from there. So I don't know if you guys can see there, but the angle at the spine kind of shoots off like that, and then there's kind of a middle one, and then usually I'll blend it out with a disc sander. But the edge itself is at a steeper angle, and that just helps there be less contact. But it's almost the same thing if you are preparing for an S grind, and I think that for a knife this nice, that I want to throw a little S grind in there. So just for the back half of the blade, I'm going to keep the tip with lots of support. If I were to pull that S grind too far forward, it would get real floppy, and I personally don't like that in my knives. So for about, I don't know, a little over half the blade, we're going to throw that S grind in there. We're going to cover it in Dicom and scribe some lines, and then get to grinding on that S grind. All right, so we're getting ready to do our S grind. I've got my edge nice and flat, looking good, but I want to have a little test etch and see how the amount that we ground into it changed the random pattern that was underneath the lotus flowers. I think that we're going to be very pleased with the result. Oof, that looks really nice. So we're going to neutralize that acid, and then we'll cover it in layout blue. All right, we got a 1/2 inch on the calipers, so we're going to scribe along our edge. Do it on the other side too. Give ourselves 1/8 inch of room on the top. Kind of have it mirror the shape of the heel. Good. All right, we're gonna go slap the 36-inch radius platen onto the grinder, and we'll start off with a 50 grit belt, and we're gonna stick to this center line that I threw on there. I'm gonna hold it at a little bit of an angle, and then I'll kind of roll it back like this. It'll be just like that. And then we'll have an S-ground chef's knife that's going to cut like nobody's business. And it'll be a lot easier as well because I have all these scribe lines to stay within. So we ran into a slight hiccup, which is that we don't have a radius platen here. So I need to go home and get it. But it's almost quitting time. And so I'm going to work on the bolster for the rest of the time tonight, and then in the morning we'll do our S grind, which honestly probably a good thing because I have slightly better reference surfaces now than I will when I have my S grind done. But for now, we'll get this bolster all squared away, straightened up. We'll get it in the lines where we scribe our new lines at. We'll get our bolster then cleaned up because right now they go from line to line, but because things are a little bit off, it's off. And yeah, we'll be able to get this thing moving forward while not working on the S grind itself. Just measure, make sure that there's no funny business. All right, that's good to know. What's good to know is that on one side, the side that has the angle that kicks up, this side of the bolster is a lot closer. And so it's kind of angled matching with the blade. But on this side, it's kind of parallel with how the blade was when it was flat. And so we have some grinding to do. I need to figure out the angle that I want to grind it at, basically. But that shouldn't be too hard to figure out. I'm just going to do a little bit of layout with my scribe. And then we'll go into the grinding room. We'll get everything evened out and looking swell. We got it ground evenly on both sides. I got a little taper on this side so it matches the other side really well. And we're going to call it there for tonight. And we'll pick back up in the morning when I'll have my radius platen and can get my S-grind going. All right, it's the next morning now. I have my S-grinding platen, 36-inch radius. And we're just going to go ahead and sneak in and buzz a little S-grind into this guy. The edge here, a ½ inch up, is at 52 thousandths of an inch. So even without the S-grind, this thing would already cut incredibly well. That's right where I like my chef's knives to be. But this S-grind is just going to give a little extra, a little something extra. You know what I'm saying? Let's go S-grind it. All right, guys, the S-grind came out pretty good, but what didn't look good, we'll be able to fix with hand sanding. There's like a little bit of a low spot there. And so we're going to get that evened out with hand sanding. And then we're going to go back and start grinding on our bevels again. Right now they're at 120 grit, and we need to bring that up a lot higher. Most of that I will do on the disc sander, though. But I want to get this S-grind looking really nice. I'm going to fuss around with my plunge lines a little bit using burrs in the hand piece. And then just like some sandpaper and whatnot. But overall, they look really good. We are at 30 thousandths of an inch at the bottom, at the thinnest point, which is pretty dang thin, but still plenty thick. I'm happy that we didn't come too far up with it because the tip of the knife is still not super flexible. And if we had drug it out farther, that would have really made it a lot flexier and feel less substantial. I made up this sanding block so that I can clamp this knife down. A little relief on the backside for the tang, and we can flip it over, and it matches the edge angle well. So I'm just going to spend one time-lapse amount of time hand sanding this guy out and working on those plunge lines, and then we'll catch back up and go back into the grinding room. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that time lapse because we got another one coming up in just a second. I got this one side rough sanded to 400. Still got a couple little waves in it, but nothing that I'm super worried about. Should be fairly easy to get out. And we're gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side. Okay, so it's looking good. Let's go back to time lapsing. All right, we got both sides looking pretty dang good now. We're gonna go back into the grinding room now, and on the disc sander, starting with 400 grit, keep in mind this is at 120. I want it to go really slow though, so I'm gonna go with 400. We're gonna do our bevels and the tip and get that up to 400 and then 600, and then we'll finish off the hand sanding of this and be able to move on to the bolster. I like to use the disc sander when I'm doing my final grinding on the blade because of the wide surface area. It really helps keep everything straight, and you get a really nice surface finish off of it, which makes hand sanding a lot simpler afterwards. Yeah, that's nice. So what we have is the edge is thinner down here, but there's more support behind it than it is up here. So that the edge goes like this a little bit, but the back of the spine goes like that. And so it's gonna be a very, very nice cutting knife. Time for another time lapse of hand sanding, our favorite. It's the next morning now. We're gonna go ahead and grind our bolster. Now, I've been looking at it, and I do think that I'm gonna work on these plunge lines a little bit more, but I'm gonna use die maker stones to clean those up, and they're at my home shop. So I'll probably do that off camera up at home. It'll just be boring, me scrubbing with those stones for a while. Anywho, we're gonna hop in, and I'm just gonna get this bolster shaped. I don't have a definitive plan on how I'm gonna do it, other than I have done this many, many, many times. And so we'll start off with like a 50 grit belt and break in all of our corners, and then kind of start rolling things around and making it look really good. Just trying to stay as even as possible. Having these reference lines will be super helpful for that. The other thing that we're gonna do before we do too much of that shaping is grind back the back of the bolster here. There's just enough material there that doesn't need to be there, that I know roughly where I'm gonna stop my bolster, so I'll just grind close to that point and then leave it, and then we'll do our finer bolster shaping later on. Final bolster shaping later on. Whew. Well, we just like halved the weight of this thing, grinding down that giant bolster. Now you'll notice that there's still a couple splotches of bad material on there, but don't worry, those will all get ground away when we shape the bolster. For now, we're gonna get this thing hand sanded and looking real good, and that way we'll be ready to move on to shaping the profile that the back of the bolster is gonna be so it can fit up into the handle. We're gonna go in for a little test etch so we can see what the pattern looks like on that bolster. Oh my gosh, what? This is gonna be my reaction every time I see this pattern. This is so sick. Oh my gosh. This looks unbelievable. That is dummy cool. The high layer gets nice and bold in the bolster and gets fine in between the petals. I am absolutely thrilled. This thing is coming along so well. I really like that the Lotuses, they all have a little bit of different distortion to them, which I think looks really good. It looks organic, which is nice because we're going for a very organic feeling knife. I like that the pattern on the bolster is a lot broader and more bold, and then it flows down and becomes a lot tighter. I also really like the topography of the plunge line of the S-grind, showing off that random pattern. I just think it looks really good. So I do want to talk for a second about what the handle plan is. I brought in some materials. And so for the actual base of the handle material, I had a couple of choices that I chose from my stash. This is some 1980s General Electric paper micarta, which would be kind of a white creamy color. I thought, if it's going to be like a water theme, because essentially thematically the handle is underwater with the stem and bubbles and stuff like that. But I don't think that would look so good. So I had two darker woods to choose from. Some African blackwood, tried and true. I love it. I use it all the time. But I think that as I've been thinking about it, where I've ended up is I want to use this block, hopefully not the whole block, of South African rooibos. It's red bush willow. It's even denser, I think, than African blackwood. And it has some very light curl to it. So it goes from being really dark black to a light brown. And I think that curl would look really nice polished out, especially with the bright dots of pearl that we're gonna do. Now I have my pearl dots here. I've got 3/32 inch, I've got 4 millimeter, I've got 3/16 of an inch, and then 1/4 inch. And so I'll be able to do a wide variety of different bright white mother of pearl bubbles, starting with smaller bubbles down at the bottom and then having them get bigger as they go towards the bolster of the knife. And then I brought in a couple chunks of really, really thick, really nice mother of pearl as well. And they have a little bit of shmoo on the back side of them. And so I think that probably what I'll do is find a chunk that I like and then steel it. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it out of the sides that have like the delamination. This stuff is really old. I'm just gonna have to play around with it, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there. But I'm gonna choose a nice cut from one of these just unheard ofly thick chunks of pearl. This stuff is over 200 thousandths of an inch. And it's pretty nice. I do have a lot more pearl like this, and I'm not sure which side I'm gonna use. Like on this piece, this side has really nice like sun rays, like the God rays you see coming out of a cloud. But this side has just that crazy activity. And I'm not sure which one would look nicer. It feels maybe a little sacrilegious to not use that nice bubbling and kind of big figure. But I do think that that kind of God ray type activity on the backside of it might look nicer. It looks a little bit more like light coming through water. So we'll figure that one out too. But overall, I'm very excited. I'm very optimistic. I think this is going to be maybe the coolest knife I've ever built. So I really appreciate you guys following along. Now, a couple announcements before we do end it. These guys might already be sold out by the time we get there, but we've got stainless tenderfoots up on the site in a bunch of different colorways. They're all 63 Rockwell Nitro V, and they come with these nifty little Kydex sheaths with discrete carry concepts clips, which makes them super easy and very convenient for in the pocket carry, or this clip clips on really nicely to stuff like a backpack or in a bino harness if you're a hunter or something like that. So we're stoked about those. They might still be up on the website. This is by far the biggest batch that we've ever done. Now, along with the stainless tenderfoots, we're also gonna have a small batch of Damascus paring knives, both in maple burl and in desert ironwood. This is house-made high carbon steel Damascus, and these are up on the site right now as well. Now, while buying a knife is probably the best way to support the channel, the easiest way to do it is just hit like and subscribe and drop a comment and tell me all the things that I did wrong in this video. I'm sure that all of you guys know a lot better how to build a knife like this than I do. Little old me, no idea what I'm doing. And if you noticed, we added the old Lotus chef behind me on the backdrop there. The old wall of shame, if you will. Anyway, I think that's gonna be it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a comment down below. We had a lot of really good response to the last video when I talked about wondering what kind of content you guys wanna see. This is certainly the type of stuff that we're gonna be focusing on. I enjoy it the most. Seems like you guys do too. So thank you so much for following along. Thank you to our patrons for patronizing us. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.